Hello. Hi, I think we'll make a start now. So welcome, my name's Amila. I'm the chair of the IET London Young Professionals Network, and welcome to our third in-person Female Leaders event. So for those who aren't familiar with us, we're a local branch of the IET where we aim to provide support at events like today to early career professionals and students. We put together lots of events throughout the year in a wide range of areas with aims to expose young people to what's out there, one of which is female leaders. So just to take a trip down memory lane, we first started this in 2023, where we had a brilliant talk from our previous YWE, Katie Deacon, followed by a really insightful webinar and tips for progressing in leadership from one of our own volunteers, Dr. Tosin. And then last year, we had a really engaging panel of female leaders on tackling the challenges of gender diversity. So we've certainly come a long way, and it's also great to see some familiar faces in the audience. So thank you all for coming to our event today and supporting us through this journey. So this is just a quick rundown of today. So we'll start with an introduction, which is now, and then our first speaker, a short break, and then our second, and then a bit of food and networking afterwards. So the theme of today is inspiring innovation. Innovation is more than invention. It's about solving real-world problems with creativity, precision, and purpose. Whether it's advancing engineering solutions that move industries forward or harnessing artificial intelligence to transform healthcare and energy, innovation thrives when diverse perspectives are empowered to lead. Hopefully, today will inspire us to reflect on how innovation is driven not just by technology, but by the people behind it. Those who challenge norms, bridge disciplines, and bring ethical, strategic thinking to the forefront. So without further ado, I'll introduce our first speaker. So Alice is a chartered UK and European patent attorney with 10 years' experience working at D Young Co in London. Alice has a mechanical engineering degree from Durham University. Her practice specialises in aerospace and automotive engineering and mechanical systems. She has experience in prosecution and drafting of UK and European patent applications for a large range of technologies and for a variety of clients, including multinational companies, SMEs, and individual inventors. She also has experience in preparing and filing UK design applications, and in 2023, Alice became a registered representative before the Unified Patent Court. Over to you.
Great. It's a little bit of an old photo. I've aged a little bit since then. Right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for that lovely introduction. My name is Alice Stuart-Grumbar, and thank you for coming this evening. So, I have a degree in mechanical engineering from Durham University, as was said previously. So to become a patent attorney, you have to have a technical degree, and then you specialise in the area of your degree. So, as I did a mechanical engineering degree, I specialise in mechanical inventions, which what I love about the job is that it's very broad. So I've worked on aerospace, cars, shoes, bikes, sports equipment, urinals, sinks, medical devices. So it's very broad, which I really love. I've worked at D Young Co for over 10 years now in our elect-mech department. So that department is formed of people with backgrounds in software, mechanical engineering, physics, electronics. We also have what's called a chem bio department, which is people with backgrounds in chemistry, pharmaceuticals, biotech. I qualified as a European and UK patent attorney in 2019. And the process basically involves a number of exams, which are notoriously very difficult and very long. Lots of them are about 6 hours, which is pretty horrendous. But glad to be out the other side of that. And yeah, been qualified since then. Just actually before I get into the body of the talk, can I just get a show of hands of people who know what a patent is? Great. And have any of you actually been involved in a patent filing process before? No, that's good. That's good I can teach you something, hopefully. So, today's talk, I'm going to run through different types of intellectual property, so IP. I'll then talk about patents in more detail, as that's my specialism, what they're for and why they're important. We'll then talk about the filing process of the patent application, a day in the life, so what I generally work on day to day, and then to tie in with the theme of today, I've got a few slides talking about female inventorship on UK patents. Oh, might jump forward, sorry. Okay, so this slightly rudimentary picture of a bike shows the 4 main types of IP, intellectual property. So if you look at the bottom, we have patents, and patents can be obtained for anything which has a technical benefit. So in the realm of a bike, it might be the gears or a process for making the tyres, or it might be something to do with the brakes, and it basically is something that has a technical benefit or a technical effect. You then have designs which protect the visual aspects of a product. So designs can be 2D or 3D. So for example, there it says unique frame shape. So a 3D design could be obtained for the shape of a bicycle. And then a 2D design might be obtained if there's a particular surface design on the bike, so an intricate design that's drawn on or something. Designs come in registered and unregistered form, so you can apply for a design application and pay renewal fees, which is what you do with patents, or some of them arise automatically, but they last a much shorter amount of time and they're much harder to enforce. Trademarks, you might have seen the sort of registered trademark logo on different brand names, and that's basically to protect like a brand name or a logo. So it's just pointing to our D Young Co logo there. And then finally, copyright. This is, here it says the manual, but other examples where copyright is found is in drawings, novels, paintings, and copyright's another one which is an unregistered right. So it arises automatically and it lasts for a certain duration after the death of the creator. So those are the four main types of IP. So what is a patent? A patent is a legal document, and just to set out what it looks like briefly, you have a background section which explains what's been done before. You then have a description section which explains the invention in more detail, and it refers to drawings which are at the end of the document, and usually they're numbered and there'll be numbers in the description, so you can so it describes what, how the invention is carried out. And then you have some claims, and claims are where the legal scope of the invention is set out, and they're sort of very precise statements at the end of the patent document. So to get a patent granted, the claims themselves are examined by an examining office, and the claims have to be novel and inventive. So novel basically means new, so has the invention been done before? And this is quite black and white, and basically it's assessed with respect to any disclosure that's happened anywhere in the world, in any language. Inventive step is a bit more nuanced, and that's basically, does the feature of difference have a technical effect? Would this feature of difference have been obvious to someone skilled in that field at the date of filing the patent application? So a patent is a negative right. Lots of people don't understand this. So it enables you to stop someone else carrying out a particular act, but it doesn't give you the right to perform that act. So if you have a patent for a product, that does not necessarily mean that you can commercialize that product. It just means you can stop someone else from commercializing it. A patent lasts normally 20 years on payment of renewal fees every year. And actually in the industry that I work in, so in mechanical engineering and also in sort of software technology, it's very rare that our clients will take the patent up to the 20 years because the renewal fees increase each year. And actually because technology moves so fast in those fields, it's actually very rare that the technology will still be relevant 20 years after it's filed. This is very different to the pharmaceutical industry where, for example, the initial patent for paracetamol, that would have been very valuable right up until the last day before it expired. So lots of pharmaceutical patents are very much taken right up to the end of their term. And a patent is a commercial deal, so basically you get a monopoly in that you can prevent other people from exploiting your invention, and in return you have to fully provide all of the information about how the invention is put into effect. So the patent document itself has to fully explain how the invention works, so at the end of the 20 years or at the point in which you no longer pay the renewal fees, someone can pick up the document and they're able to put the invention into effect. So, why get a patent? Well, the main reason is to protect the investment behind the invention. So, obviously this isn't my field, but in, for example, pharmaceuticals, obviously millions of pounds might go into the development of a new drug. And so that first pill off the conveyor belt might cost 10 million. That second pill costs pennies. So if you're not getting protection for your invention, someone could pick up that pill, they could see what chemicals are inside it, and they could create it for not very much money at all, and you've lost all the value of that investment that you put in for that first pill. Preventing counterfeits, so obviously, ideally you don't want people copying your invention, products, it dilutes your brand, so that's another big one. Financial gain, so once you get a patent granted, you can license out the patent. You can either get an exclusive license where you basically provide one party the exclusive right to work that invention, or you can license it out to a number of different parties and obviously then receive licensing fees from each of these parties. Also, you can charge higher prices for a product. So as I said, because the patent itself enables you to stop other people from working the invention, by having the patent protection, you can put your prices up because no one else is able to launch a similar product. Attracting further investment. So for lots of our smaller clients, they come to us and they say, well, our investors are saying that, or our potential investors are saying, you know, we need to file patent protection before they'll invest in us because it shows that we're looking after ideas. And it's, you know, part of them, the investors doing due diligence of the company, they might check that IP rights are in place. And then finally, Patent Box. This is a scheme run by the government which basically enables you to receive a reduction in your corporation tax for any profits generated by products protected by patents. The reduction is pretty high. I think it's about 10% off, so it can lead to really large savings. So how to obtain a patent protection? So I would obviously say come to a patent attorney. You can file one yourself. I wouldn't recommend doing this. They are very complicated documents, and once you file a patent application, once you've got that filing date, you can't add anything to that application after filing. So it's really important that when you file the patent application, it's got everything in that you want to rely on later on. So when you're working with a patent attorney, they'll talk through your invention with you, and they'll make sure you've considered any alternatives that might work with the invention. And that sort of brainstorming is really useful because, you know, those features will go into the patent application and they might actually be used later on during prosecution, which I'll discuss in a minute. So yeah, so you come to a patent attorney, and usually we'll have an initial call with, you know, I get emails or calls from people who are sort of in their shed at home and they've come up with an idea, or small companies, and they say, I've got this idea. And in that initial call, it's usually, we don't charge for that, and it's basically us explaining what a patent is, what the process is for filing one, how long it will take, the likely costs. And if they decide they want to go ahead, then we start drafting the patent application. And at that point, we might have some more calls with the inventors. There'll be lots of backwards and forwards. We'll prepare an initial draft and send it to them. There'll be some comments, and then we'll prepare updated drafts. And then we get the patent application filed. So that's at the priority filing point. And the reason why it's called a priority filing is that there's this patent system, where you can file an initial application called a priority application, and then you have a year to file later applications in other countries. And the benefit of doing this is that you get your sort of stake in the sand. You file that first application. Usually we would recommend to our clients that you file in the UK first, because the official fees in the UK are very low. They're a few £100s. And then if any documents are cited in that intervening 12 months, they can't be cited against the later subsequent filings because of that original priority filing date. So then at the end of that 12 months, you'll decide whether or not to file later filings. And the benefit of filing in the UK first is that you request a search and examination by the UK Patent Office, and they'll issue this exam report, and they're usually very quick at doing that, so you'll get it within 6 months. So then that will sort of inform your decision as to whether you proceed outside the UK, because that's when costs start, racking up quite a lot. In countries like China, you're paying translation fees. The US have very high attorney fees, and also the official fees in the US are very high as well. So you're in a better position to decide whether it's actually commercially the right decision for you, or whether it's better for you to stick in just the UK. So carry out these subsequent filings. And sorry, just one more point actually. With the priority filing, again, then that's the point that you've got your GB filing. You can then talk to your investors, and at that point you might be able to obtain more investment to then help with your subsequent filings. You then have prosecution, which is basically, as I said, you request search and examination. So each patent office will then issue these exam reports, and what a lot of my day job entails is basically responding to these exam reports. So you're saying to the examiner why you disagree with their assessment that actually the claims aren't new or aren't inventive, or you might agree, in which case you say to your client, actually we need to make some amendments to the claims. But as I said, this all has to be from within the scope of the application as filed. So there's lots of back and forth, and then hopefully it grants. Unfortunately, that's not the end. So at grant, you can sometimes receive post-grant third-party oppositions, which is basically competitors come along and actually they're not happy with your granted patent, so they might file an opposition and they'll say, you know, these other documents exist that weren't found by the examiner, the patent isn't valid. And then there's more back and forth, sometimes a hearing, oral hearing in person, and then hopefully you get to a point where your patent's granted. So day-to-day as a patent attorney. So as I said, the main bulk of my job is drafting these responses, which is what keeps it so interesting because they're quite sort of modular pieces of work, and so it might mean that in the morning I'm working on an aircraft engine and in the afternoon I'm working on some shoes or something, which keeps it really interesting. And then inventor and client calls. So during the drafting process, you know, I might have quite a few calls with the inventors. And then when I'm responding to office actions, so exam reports, I might end up having a call with the inventor to discuss a particular document that's been cited by the examiner, which might throw up some more questions about the technology. The drafting patent applications, that's obviously a very intense and long process, so that takes quite a while. Infringement analyses, so basically to infringe a patent, you have to have all of the features of the independent claims. So the claim set has independent claims and then dependent claims, which basically are optional features of the invention. And to infringe, you have to have all of the features of the independent claims. So we might, you know, hear from one of our clients and they say, our competitor has brought this product out, we're concerned that we think that it might infringe our patent. And so sometimes we're performing sort of a destructive analysis of that product. So we're cutting inside it so we can see all of the features of the product, and we're seeing whether all of the features of the claims of our patents are shown in these products. FTO analyses, so FTO is freedom to operate. So that's when a client comes to us and says, oh, we're thinking of launching this product, but we're a little bit concerned that we might infringe our competitors' patents. So then we will look at the competitor's patent and we'll look at their product and we will provide some input on whether or not it falls within the scope of the claims. And that's obviously a really useful exercise for them because if it's at a point they haven't launched their product yet, we can provide some input if we think it's likely they might infringe. They might be able to adapt their product slightly before launch, which prevents obviously expensive legal proceedings later on. And then oppositions, so I touched on that earlier, and that's basically after grant of a patent, we can oppose our competitors' patents or they can oppose ours. And so that, again, is more sort of written proceedings, and then you usually go to an oral hearing at the end of that and get an outcome. So moving sort of more into the theme of today, I found a study done by the UK Intellectual Property Office about the relationship between male and female inventors from 1980 to 2015. Obviously, 2015 is now 10 years ago, but I still think this is quite interesting data. So this shows the percentages of female inventors and how it's changed over that time period. I will just add that they did this basically based on first names of inventors, so it's not completely accurate, and they had to discount a number of patents where they weren't able to tell. So in 1980, there were under 4% female inventors, which is pretty shocking, and probably more shocking in 2015, there was still only just over 8%. Hopefully you can see this, but basically this shows the split of male to female inventors in different technology areas. So in biotechnology, the top one on the left, I've just split the table in two. This shows the most favourable position for female inventors. So there's about a quarter female and 3/4 male. And then on the bottom right, that's mechanical engineering, mechanical elements. And that shows 97.1% male and 2.9% female. So that's obviously very, very low. And then finally, this slide shows so when you file a patent application, it's you have a legal obligation to state the names of all inventors. So this shows the split between all male teams, all female teams, male individuals, female individuals, and mixed teams. Again, we've got 1980 and 2015, and then this is actually from a separate study I found, which is 2017. So perhaps if we just compare the 2015 to 2017, this does show there has been an increase in that time. So we've gone from, the all-female has gone from 0.3% to 6%, is that right? And so it's a big increase, but still very, very low. Female individuals are 6% there, and it's 3.9% in 2015. So it does show that there's some increases. There has been a study done which shows that they expect gender parity between inventors. Well, this is just in the UK, by the way. Gender parity will be reached by 2079, which feels like a very long time away. And actually, another study has found that that doesn't actually really take into account world events. So, for example, the COVID pandemic was shown to lead to a reduction of women in STEM subjects because women were doing more in the home, so we're moving away from work. So stuff like that will definitely impact how this develops over the next 60 years. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. That's it. So I think I rattled through that quite quickly. Does anyone have any questions?
What's your most memorable patent and why?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, I just would like to ask, what's your most memorable patent you've worked on and why?
So I personally really like working on the products which are sort of tangible items that I would come across in everyday life. So I worked on a rugby ball for one of our clients, and Gilbert, and it's the rugby ball that was used in the World Cup, and it basically has, it's all public, so that's not giving anything away here, but it basically has a tracking system inside the ball, which basically means that I actually don't think it's been used as much as they would hope yet, but I think it will definitely be used in the future. But it provides really interesting stats for the teams of how the ball's moving between players, where it's going on the pitch. I think ultimately it might be used to see, sometimes, I don't know how much people watch rugby, but you can't tell if the ball's gone over the try line, so it might be used for stuff like that. So it's just stuff like that when you can hear them on the TV, they're kind of mentioning the device that you've been involved in and you've obviously known about for years is very cool. So that's probably one of my favourite ones I've worked on. Govind.
Hello. Do you find yourself spending a lot of time with inventions that don't go anywhere, or you have to reject them or whatever in that way?
It does happen, less so with the inventions with the applications we draft ourselves, but we do a lot of work where they've been filed in foreign jurisdictions first and then they're filed in Europe later on. It's not really my specialist area, but software patents are very difficult to get granted. So quite often, we'll be working on those and we just can't get to a position where we can get it granted. So it will lapse, it will get rejected. So that happens quite a lot. But it's less likely in the patents that we draft ourselves.
During the patent renewal, is there an opportunity to adapt or review the application?
No, so you can't. So once you've applied for the patent, you can't change the scope beyond what's in it as filed. But you can change it from what's within the application as filed. So, for example, there might be a situation where you get a patent granted, then actually something comes to your attention and you realise your patent actually isn't valid, and so you might want to make some changes to it just to avoid someone else attacking your patent and it being revoked, or you having to make amendments that you don't really want. So you might preemptively make some changes to the to the patent claims. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
In your experience, what are the main reasons why a patent would be rejected? And I guess, how is that relevant to each kind of invention? So if it was to do with automotive, if it's to do with pharmaceutical, things like that?
So there's lots of different requirements which we haven't discussed, but for example, one of the requirements that, or one of the objections that come up in patent communications exam reports are added subject matter. So as I said, you can't add subject matter beyond what's in the scope of the patent as filed, but sometimes you just can't. Your patent was sort of intended to cover something, and so you end up trying to put these features in, but the examining body is saying no because that's not in the application as filed. So quite often that happens. As I said, the software patents are quite hard to get granted. There's a very particular way the inventor step is assessed, so that might be why they might be rejected. And then sometimes, I speak to inventors and they're convinced that their invention is amazing, and it's definitely the first time it's ever been done, and they don't want to do a prior art search before it's filed because they're absolutely sure it's perfect. You file it, and then all of these documents come up, and they're just horrified that this has happened, but they weren't that familiar with the field. I mean, it happens quite rarely because usually people who have been working in an industry for a long time are very familiar with what their competitors are doing, but sometimes it's just not new.
Hi, you said you've worked with medical devices. I was wondering what kind of projects you got to work on?
I've done some work on syringes. I did one device which was a tumour disaggregation device, so it was sort of like a Magimix for a tumour, which sounds a bit horrible, but it chopped up the pieces so it could be investigated closer. I've done a catheter. I've done an ostomy bag. So yeah, a big range.
Hello. So I just was wondering, coming from a technical background in mechanical engineering, what drew you to becoming a patent attorney, and what were your initial inspirations for it?
It's a really good question. So I actually did apply for lots of engineering jobs, and I didn't actually get any. And then I had a friend who went to university with me. She was the year above, and she did chemistry at university, and she was training to be a patent attorney in the pharmaceutical industry. And she said, have you thought about doing this? Because it's really not a very well-known profession. I think lots of people have never heard of it before when they ask me what I do. And so I looked into it, and I actually thought, I think in hindsight it definitely suits me better than being an engineer, because you really do use your technical skills that you learn at university. It's really interesting, but it's a really lovely is the wrong word, but it's an interesting intersection of law and technology, which I really enjoy. It can be quite solitary sometimes. It's lots of writing on your own. It's not much teamwork, which I do miss from, I suppose, you get a lot more of as an engineer. But no, I'm happy with the decision I made.
How big, in paper-wise and in size, is a patent consist of thousands of pages, or does it depend on what the invention is?
It really depends. So we have an sort of internal checking process in my company where if patents are filed, then we'll cross-check, and this goes across the departments. So when I see patents that come out of the Chem Bio department, so the pharmaceutical ones, they're really, really long. They often have sequence listings in, and they can be sort of 200 or 300 pages. I think the longest patent I've ever written is probably about 25 pages. Mechanical inventions are usually a lot more simple than the sort of chemical ones. You're explaining, obviously, how the product works, and there might be a few different ways of doing it, so you're explaining the drawings in detail, but it's unlikely to be longer than that. And actually, there are excess page fees that you pay for patents in the UK. It's for over 35 pages, I think. So, I mean, they're not much, but there's definitely an incentive to keep it quite short, and particularly if your client's going to want to file abroad, because, for example, paying translations for any any patent you pay per word, so actually you don't want to be just repeating yourself for the sake of it.
I've got 2 questions here. So what is your day-to-day like and your working environment? And my second question is, what is your future aspirations? So what's next for you? Do you plan to be a patent attorney to the very end or anything?
So first question, day-to-day. I mean, it really varies. Today I was working on, what was I working on today? It's totally gone. But yesterday I was working on shoes all day, and that was, one of our clients has been sued for infringing some patent rights. And so I'm preparing a response to that, and we're trying to invalidate, I'm preparing a response to that. And so that might be one day. Another day is, like I said, these responses, and you're filing responses to office actions, and that is reviewing prior art documents that have been cited by an examiner, and putting together a letter. So that's sort of my day. It does vary quite a lot. And your second question is, do I want to be a patent attorney forever? I'm enjoying it for now. So, I mean, I work in a private practice, which is really great because you work with lots of different technologies, but you can go and work in-house at a technology company, which can be very interesting because you're much more involved in the commercial aspects of the inventions, because although that definitely plays into my job now, and we speak to the inventors and we say, where do you see this product going? What's your plan for this product? If you're actually working in a company and you're seeing the technology day to day, you're talking to the engineers every day, you probably see the effects of the inventions that you're working on a lot more.
You said you've worked on loads of different types of patents in loads of different industries. Is there anything that you haven't worked on that you would think that would be really cool to work on, and why?
I really love cooking, so maybe some sort of cooking equipment. Maybe. Trying to look to get into more of the renewable space as well. So it's something I feel very passionate about. So perhaps some more in sort of the renewable fields.
Kind of going back to the question of how you went from mechanical engineering to a patent attorney, would you mind just kind of explaining more of the exact steps you had to do? Did you have to do like further study, or what was the process like?
Yeah, so I did the degree, and then you apply for the job. So you would join a company as a trainee patent attorney, and then you do all the exams while you're employed on the job. So the foundation, so for the UK and the European exams, you have a sort of foundation level and a higher level. And for the UK ones, usually your company will send you on a course. So I went on a 3-month course at Queen Mary University, and then did exams at the end of that. And then the rest of the exams are all just while you're working. So your company hopefully gives you a bit of time off. But you're usually doing it with other people at your firm, so you can work together. And then do the exams on the job and qualify. That's it. So you don't have to, it's not like a law conversion or anything like that. It's just straight into the job.
You mentioned the US and China. Just wondering what the points of differences in terms of, in maybe like infringement, considering we live in such a globalized world and manufacturing sort of supply chains generally are not in the UK now. Does that have any impact in terms of, later down the line infringements on patents, or is the legislation or governance in those countries stricter or weaker, in your opinion? Just curious of the differences.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Well, I think obviously in China there's always an idea that there's so many counterfeits, and actually the government aren't very good at cracking down on those. In the UK, the infringement law is slightly different in all jurisdictions, and so in the UK, as I said, to infringe a claim, you have to have all the features of the claim. That's a slight oversimplification in that, for example, say the claim said a nail. It was a fastening means comprising a nail, and then your competitor had a product that had all of the same features apart from rather than a nail, it had a screw. And it might be that that would be found to be infringing because it's effectively like a sort of equivalent feature, even though it's not exactly the same. So in the UK, you have that sort of equivalent part of the law. It's slightly different in the US. I'm not sure exactly how it works because I'm not a US attorney, but so we would quite often give our clients initial advice as to whether we think they might infringe these sort of US or Chinese patents, but we would say, you know, you need to consult a US or a Chinese attorney because we can't really do it in detail. But yeah, so it is different in different countries, and actually sometimes you'll see different patents enforced in different countries, and in one country the patentee might be successful, so they might, you know, be found to be infringing, and in another country actually it's found that it's not infringing, and actually the patent might be found to be invalid. And because different countries assess novelty, and well, novelty is usually the same across different countries, but they assess inventive step in a very different way. So that's, as I said earlier, that's one of the requirements to get a patent granted, and it's much harder, I would say, to get a patent granted in Europe than it is in the US. In the US, it's sometimes easier, and so that leads to then different ways in which they can be enforced, because it might be in Europe we've had to narrow our claim quite significantly. So by that I mean keep adding extra features into the claim to distinguish it over the prior art, whereas in the US they might have been able to get something granted that's very broad, and broad claims will obviously capture more products, so are more likely to have more products that are infringing them, whereas narrow claims, it's much easier for a party to work around the patent, because they can look at the features of the claim and they can say, well, it's got that feature in there, what we're going to do is we're going to take that out, we're going to put something else in which is not equivalent, and we can sort of work our way around the claim.
I have one. So when you get a patent, what happens next? So is it...
When it's granted?
Yeah.
Quite often, nothing. It might be that you might just get that patent because you want to just have it there. You can but you can label your products as patented once it's granted. And so it might just act as a deterrent to your competitors. You can also enforce it. It's very expensive to go down the court route, so it might be that you just send a sort of polite letter to your competitor and say, actually, you know, are you aware of this patent? Just to bring it to their attention. But you know, lots of our clients, they get these patents granted and they don't actually do anything with them. It's just they've got them as tools for investment, deterrents for their competitors, but actually they grant and they just pay the renewal fees every year, but they're not actually actively enforcing them.
And just a follow-up question, do you get involved with people who want to sell their patents, or is that a whole separate thing?
Not really, no. We would help them to assign the rights. So if you sell a patent, you have to update the legal registers which record the patent. So we might write assignment documents that enable that assignment, but that's not really something that we would do, no.
Cool. If there aren't any more questions, we have a 20-minute break before our next speaker. So please talk amongst yourselves, help yourselves to coffee, tea.
Thank you.
Lambo. I'll put on a tight show. You sure you can handle? We be faster than Django.
Can't stop, won't stop. I can't stop, won't stop. I can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop.
So salty.
You sure you can handle? Okay. We can take my Lambo. I'll put on a tight show. You sure you can handle? We be faster than Django. Can't stop, can't stop, can't stop, can't stop, can't stop, can't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop. I can't stop, won't stop. I can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop. Can't stop, can't stop, can't stop, can't stop, can't stop, can't stop. Can't stop.
Hello, and welcome for part 2, and thank you for staying. Okay, so I'll introduce our second speaker. So, Dr. Roshanak is a Google developer, expert, and lead data scientist at IBM Consulting with a PhD in artificial intelligence and over a decade of experience in delivering impactful AI and generative AI solutions across healthcare, finance, and energy. Her expertise spans from computer vision, deep learning, and large-scale data energy. With a strong focus on translating advanced research into strategic, real-world applications. As a leader, she has guided cross-functional teams and advised executive stakeholders to align AI initiatives with business goals, driving innovation at organizations such as the NHS, Coca-Cola, and Electa. Beyond her technical achievements, she's a passionate advocate for ethical AI and inclusive innovation, mentoring emerging talents as a Women Tech Makers Ambassador, and actively sharing knowledge through open source contributions and educational content.
Thank you. Thanks. Hi, everyone. everyone, and thank you so much for coming to my talk, and as she said, staying for my talk. The first talk was so interesting, and yeah, it was very insightful, thanks. So now let's go to my talk, which is about decoding the AI job market, the skills, roles, and how to get hired. I believe most of the people in this room, they don't need to be hired. You already have a job. Or some of you might be. Cool. I can see some faces smiling. So great. Whether you're in your early stages of your career, whether you're thinking you can make a change, or whether we have some more senior people that maybe they can share their knowledge later with us. So let's start. So let me tell you a bit about myself. So I'm Roshanak. I'm a lead data scientist at IBM. So I work a lot with AI, generative AI these days. And also I'm a Google developer expert in AI and cloud. That's what you can see, the logo on top. I recently won the prize for the top 100 women in tech, which is very interesting for me because I'm like very happy to be named between all those amazing women. And also in part-time, I'm a lecturer and I teach in computer science courses. Currently, I'm teaching at Solent University. And yeah, AI is what I really care about, what I really like, and I love learning it and teaching it to people. And to be honest, I was inspired to give these kinds of talk from my students because they come and they ask me how they can get job, what they should do, and I feel I was also having this concerns when I was doing my undergraduate or master's or even PhD when we are studying, or even if you want to make a change. So let's see, hopefully this would be interesting and useful for some of you who are thinking to make some changes. So a bit more about myself. So I got my PhD in AI and it was focused on computer vision and image processing. And years after my PhD, I still stayed at academia. I wanted to always become a professor and, teach and, do research. So I went to Cambridge University, I went to St. Andrews, I worked with amazing people. And then I noticed like I should come back, maybe I should go basically to industry to be able to work on like applications that they are more industrial because things in AI is changing so fast, and I really wanted to see the impact of my work like into people's day-to-day life. Because coming from research, to real practice, it can be slightly much more, takes longer time. And as the first speaker was talking about, in case even if you have like a novel new idea, you have to go through a process of registering it and so on. So anyway. And as I told you, I like teaching and also I love learning and teaching it. So I write blogs on Medium. I started my YouTube channel, but I don't have too much time. But yeah, sometimes if I can, I try to explain things about AI in simpler language. And these are the platforms that I listed at the bottom. I'm active there, so feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you have any question, I'll be more than happy to be connected with you all. So let's start. First of all, if we want to get into AI and data science, so what are the industries that we can consider? This is a question that lots of us, we don't know. I mean, lots of us maybe know, sorry, but I mean, lots of the people who are at their early stages that they want to make a change, they don't know. And we just think about maybe a specific industry. And, but while there's so many other, industries that they need AI and data scientists, and our knowledge can be very valuable for them as well. Like, for example, public sector. In governance, like these days we can see, like, not only in the UK, also in the other countries, there's so many, AI applications and AI, related work that the governance are talking about. Health and wellness, NHS, or Oh my God, what happened? Is that fine? And yeah, NHS is, or related, healthcare and life sciences and medicine, medical related tech. There's so much interest and demand for data scientists. Financial services, banks, me myself at IBM, I worked on many different sectors. One of them, which is very interesting for me, is like banks, that there are our big clients as well, and how they are bringing AI and data science into their applications that we are using is very interesting for me. Marketing, digital commerce, and research and development, in case if you want to stay in academia, and there are lots of things that you can do. And when we get our degree, I believe, or when we train ourselves as a data scientist, we have a lot of other choices. We don't need to only get the job as a data scientist. We can do things like data analyst. We can be a strategic analyst and lead even. We can do machine learning engineering. If you want to be very hands-on, if you want to do a lot of technical stuff, yeah, machine learning is the good path. Big data, cloud architects, these are another interesting part, that although they can be, a lot of different skills you also need to have, but the overlap is huge, and you need to have this knowledge as well. And again, you can be an AI research scientist, that lots of big companies even, they have big research labs that they dedicate a lot of funding every year, and they have their own researchers, they fund students, they even work with professors from universities that basically bring brilliant talented to work on their ideas, and then when the idea is successful, then because they're a big company, they can bring it into production faster. And here I just listed some of the top 10 data science companies. I know maybe some of you might find them, I don't know, you have other top 10, or I don't know, I'm sure now you are judging me. But there are so many of them. And not only the big companies, big tech companies, there are so many also now, the startups. And even there, with the advancement of generative AI, we can see like the startups compared to the past, they're growing and much faster compared to the past. And so there are so much things are going on, although we always hear the fear that, okay, AI is somehow killing the jobs, and so many jobs are going to be basically doesn't exist anymore. But there are, at this stage, there are so much demand for the people who are educated, or they want to be educated in this field, because we know everybody is talking about AI, and some industries, even if they don't need it immediately because they don't want to be behind, they started thinking about it, they started, bringing expert people on board, and they want to make sense of their data better. And of course with AI. And the companies I listed here, most of them, they have been in AI for a long time. Most of them, they contributed to the AI knowledge that we have at this time, and because of their work and what they've done already. And so the data science industry roadmap, to me, of course, we can have different roadmaps, we can start from different parts, but it's always, we need to have the foundational skills, which basically you need to know about maths, you need to know about programming at different stages of your career as a data scientist, or different fields, as I say. It's always good to have, and basically it starts with knowing the maths and the programming languages, which is mostly Python is in demand. Of course, there are other languages as well. And that you can know, and then you can think that, okay, now I have the fundamental knowledge, Then I can go and improve my knowledge about other fields, which would be the next one is, of course, it's data science. So data is a big part of that. So now I have to know how can I deal with data. First part of that would be the data collection. How can I clean my data? How can I make sense of my data? And I tell you guys, like the data part, the data engineering is very, very important because sometimes we just try to come, especially in when we do research, something about maybe the latest model, something which nobody used before, something which is works faster. But if you don't know your data, then what's the point of that? So knowing the data, understanding the data, and these things take time. This thing needs knowledge, and we have to spend time to learn about them, how we store our data, what are the different data bases, what kind of data I have, different type of data, there are different ways that we have to deal with them. And by spending time and understanding this, then we are, of course, one stage better than the previous one. And then we start now do the analysis part. We call it EDA, or exploratory data analysis. That now I have data, I want to analyze that, I want to make sense of that, I want to be able to present that to people who don't know about, this maybe statistical they don't have a proper understanding of the statistics, and I can visualize this for them to somehow show what's going on in this data, what kind of data I have. And with understanding our data better, be able to visualize it better, then I can go and do the next part, which is like modeling my data. Whether we want to use the machine learning, traditional models, up to these days, like the generative LLMs and VLMs and so on. What do we want to do? Even agents. Have you guys heard about agentic AI? Anybody is using that into their work? Anybody is interested? Awesome. Yeah, I can later share some links with you guys that you can build your own first agent. But in case if we want to bring it into like our real production and like a data that we have, so it's good to, of course, have the more understanding about our data, then I'm able to work on this different machine learning, deep learning, in general, AI modeling. And of course, there are so many different ways from the traditional one up to the recent one that basically we can, for example, train our model, that the model is basically learning from some past data, some data itself. The same that LLMs, basically they learned a lot from us, each one of us, our data, which is basically somewhere in the internet, or maybe if there is a specific data that a company is using. And then after that, we can go even to be more advanced. We can go to MLOps. We can do the model development. We can develop our own model. We can do better data visualization. And then from here, like when you have the great knowledge about, in general, data science, machine learning, and so on, then it's also great to work on your presentation skills and the communication, because it's great to be a great, like, let's say, engineer, scientist, right? But of course, we have to present it well, as well as having the communication skills as well. And the storytelling and all of these things help us to go for better interview preparation and be able to present ourselves better, talk about the things that we've done, talk about our ideas better. And then after this, sharing the projects, anything you've done, anything, even if you're a student, try to share something on your LinkedIn, on your GitHub, so why not? You've done you spend at least a few weeks to do a project. You're able to share that, and at least you can share like what you gained from spending time to do that specific project. Go to Kaggle. Have you guys used Kaggle? Anybody? I can see some of you are nodding. The Kaggle is great for computer scientists, data scientists, the students, or not only students, even professionals. In case if you want to get data, there's so many nice data there There is so much people, they share their codes there. And there are also some competitions that there are prizes for that. In case if you're interested, you can go and participate in that. So we can be active in these communities. We can be active in sharing our knowledge with others. And what I can see, you guys, as far as you are here, so you know the first step of communication and the power of sharing the knowledge with each other. And guys, social media, it has the power. Why not to use it for your own good? Use it, publish your information about your knowledge, and you'll be able to see like the impact of that. You get even feedback. Maybe some people can also comment about your work, and then you understand you can improve it. Some people would like your work, and they can even offer you a job. They would like to collaborate with you. They would like to come and invite you to come and give talk, for example, at this event. So it's good to share. It's good to document for yourself, and it's also good that whether you like sharing online or not, but document it for yourself. Then you can go back and you can see what you've done in the past and what you're going to do now, how you're going to change that. And then I want to show you this one, this pyramid, that it shows like how to advance in the data scientist roles. Somehow I want to continue what I was talking about in the previous slide. So we understood like we have to start with like the technical knowledge. We have to bring our foundation knowledge about what's going on, even the maths, what's the latest model. Even if I'm not going to be like a proper maybe data analyst, but I have to know like what people are talking about. So I have to improve, and gain this fundamental knowledge and develop my technical skills. Then after that, I can go and gain experience in leading and mentoring others. I can, whether if you have a job already, you can work with people who are more junior in your company. If you're a student, you can work with your other students. Go and ask even for mentorship, and also try to mentor others as well. And there is always chance for that. There is always room for that. Then also try to communicate with people above you, people who are below you. Try to understand the people who are already there, what they've done. People like who is your role model, what they've done to reach to that position, whether in a company, whether in maybe the person is someone, I don't know, a founder of, for example, a great tech company. The information is already there. We can go and find about them and see what they've done and what was their success, how they got to that success. And develop your communication and problem-solving skills. This is very, very important, guys, especially if you want to work in consulting companies, if you are going to be a solution engineer, let's say, because especially with our field of AI, things are changing quickly, rapidly. And the problems that we want to solve most of the time, it's new. It's something new that we have to think about, how I'm going to solve this. This is not something, because yes, maybe the problem of, I don't know, doing something specific with AI, we solved it 10 years ago, but the method we used 10 years ago is different and somehow is like out of date, right? So if I want to be very someone with that everybody wants to recruit me, or I'll be in demand, let's say, my knowledge, then I have to know about what's going on, right? So I have to also be able to have the problem-solving skills. And be able to communicate, be able to bring my ideas, because now you gain the knowledge, be able to say that, okay, I think this is going to work, or even this is not going to work, and bring the reasons, to convince your stakeholders, your clients, or anyone who is interested to work with you, communicate with them and be able to prove your ideas to them. And network with others, with the more senior people, more senior data scientists, do research, use these tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, and so on to be able to, learn from them more. You can even communicate with them, ask them to check your CV, ask them to give you interview questions about specific, I don't know, if you're going to have tomorrow interview, for example, with IBM Consulting in London, just ask ChatGPT. There are, of course, they can give you some related question for this specific task. What Google is going to ask. There are videos on YouTube. So the more we understand this, the better we can be, and of course we're gonna go, somehow we can be filtered easier, because we are like going to be on the top, compared to others, because the more amount of work we put, the better we can be. And differentiate yourself. So how can we differentiate ourselves? This is something lots of my students, they always ask me. Because yes, they are doing great, they are getting great university degree, they are, they get good marks, but when they go for job interviews, either like it's very difficult to get to the job interview, and how they can say that I'm better than the other candidates, right? So, of course, these skills that we said is important, but there are nowadays, there's so many other things that people are doing. One thing is the industrial certificates. These are, guys, very, very important, especially if you are not having a degree in related courses. I can see some people, they studied law, they studied history, they studied geography, but they want to work as a data scientist. And they can be very, very successful, to be honest. So they go and study online, but how they can prove that? So with these industrial certificates, and they're getting a lot trendier than before these days. Google has its own certificates, IBM has its own certificates, so you can be AWS for Amazon, you can, they have like very powerful, you're gonna have a very powerful CV if you have the certificates of them, because there are so many of the companies that they're working with, the technology of Amazon, Azure, from Microsoft, I don't know, IBM, Google, and so on, that when you have the certificates from those companies, somehow you're saying like, see, that company like certified my knowledge. So then they would trust somehow your CV, because they know like you have that maybe niche expertise that they are looking for. Mentorship, as I said, seriously, is very important, and mentorship is just finding the right person and getting guidance from them. It doesn't need to be one person for a long time. It can be so many different people. It can be one person you can meet regularly, but depends the level of that person, how much they can spend time for you. But coming to these events is great. Maybe just talk to someone that you think, okay, maybe this person was me 2 years ago. So how did they get to that position? So you can just, even 5 minutes, talk to them. You can get tips. You can compare in your mind for yourself the things that different people are saying. And work experience. Work experience is, of course, very, very important. Like I say, it's the most important one. If I want to come and say that I work, I don't know, for 10 years at Amazon AWS compared to if I only have their certificate, of course, the work experience is more valuable, right? They can trust that I really worked and I was hands-on on the AWS technology. But how can we get experience when we are in the, either in the change transit, we want to do in the transition move of the career, or we want to just get our first job? Is internship or voluntary work. I know it can be difficult to get them even, or it's like sometimes it's not ideal, but if we try that, if we at least try to see what are the opportunities there, and if we can get it, as much as we have time and we have the capacity for that, then we're gonna improve our CV. We're gonna differentiate ourselves. I can come and say that, yes, I graduated like everyone else from this university. I also got good marks, but for me, I also spent let's say, I don't know, 5 hours a week in my last semester, for example, working for this specific company. That would really make the difference. For these industrial credentials, listing the Google Cloud Skills Boost. As I said, all the other companies that I listed, and I'm sure the one, they are your favorite ones, the top tech one, they have these kinds of industrial certificates. Regardless of the certificates, they have all of them started, they have their kind of Coursera version. You know, like, for example, Google has its own, they call it Cloud Skills Boost. You just go there, they have like short, you know, kind of labs that you can go and they give you free credit. You can just go play with that specific technology on the app under, for example, cloud, and learn about that. And then you get like a small certificates. And then when you get ready, when you learned about their technology, you can go and sit for the exam. Coursera is another great one. When I was a student, Coursera just started with the first course of machine learning from Andrew Ng. I don't know how many of you took that course, but it's still very valuable. It's still very great for people who want to learn learn about the fundamentals of machine learning, the maths behind it, and so on. So I do still encourage you guys to go and read that, and so many of the latest courses from the best universities in the world, the best companies, and you can learn this from the very, very expert people in a nice way. And so, in general, what I'm thinking is that what I believe in is that there are 3 stages in the career journey that all of us we have. First of all, we have to know what is my position, and then the initial position is always important to basically that you map the time and the goals and reflect your strengths and values. I'm going to work on something, I'm going to spend my time. I want to work on something which I care about, which is I'm good at it, which I'm going to enjoy. From here, then I can choose the industry that I talk about in the first slide, right? For example, our first speaker, she was talking about she cares about life sciences, right, and medicine, and she got a job in that. For me, I was interested in cancer treatment, so I took my PhD AI related to that. Then I work at Elekta, a medical tech company that basically they make radiotherapy machine. What happened? And so for me, then I went and I was really feeling excited every day morning when I'm working on something which I care about. And you can change later. For example, as I said, now these days I'm interested about banking and finance because they have really interesting data, and with AI we can do really cool stuff. So at each stage you can see what I like to do right now, what can I be good at, what my knowledge can be valuable for that specific field, right? And then we can develop. We can develop yourself in that specific field. For example, the example I said myself, I wanted to make the change. I wanted to learn about another industry as well. I wanted to know how at banks they use AI because they have really interesting data, and their data is very different than healthcare data. How are they going to do that? Of course, I had to go and spend a lot of time to learn, about that myself again, okay? I had to go and work on that. I had to go and convince people that, you can trust me. My knowledge can be interesting in this field as well. I can bring my knowledge in that as well. And in case if you don't have work experience, as I said, go get a part-time job. Try to see if you can do something. There's so much internships or sometimes volunteer works in case you are able to do that as well. And I know in big companies, they're always, regardless of the internship, there are students who want to have like a year gap. They can just go there. But of course, I believe they are more competitive. But you can just go there and see if you really like to work there. Is this something you want to do? Then you can come back to university and continue your studies. And the last stage to me is like basically like establishing the foundation and then take action from that. So the execution stage, let's call it. So from here, we are able to now look at ourselves and then see like what was my failures, what did I learn, what experience I have, and what are the opportunities. And again and again, our field, AI, is changing super fast. So we have to do this, this reevaluation very frequently. We have to understand like what's happening, what is now the trend, what is the market wants, what should I learn, what should I do, maybe my knowledge, I don't know, for example, in healthcare, is not that much in demand nowadays because, let's say, I don't know, we don't have too much demand in healthcare, just giving an example. Then I can shift to something else. So this is the stages that I think is good that in each stage of our career we just think about it and reevaluate that. And I think I'm going toward the end of my presentation. So just because of my knowledge about like Google as a Google developer expert, so I thought to share this slide, which is I put their page on the top, so they really do nice kind of diagrams. They really interesting, especially for data science, about Google Cloud, but of course there are similar ones that you can find about other technologies, that they really show you that in case if you want to be a data engineer, let's say at Google, what expertise you should have, okay? For a data analyst, for model development, for ML engineer, and then we can see like proper and more detailed details about their technology, and I can see like, okay, this is the technology that they are using for this specific role, and I can either be good in one of them but have wider knowledge about the rest, or if I can be having a more general knowledge about all of them, then you can also understand if I'm going for a job interview what kind of questions they're asking me. So I really like this one. Again, I'm saying AI is changing super fast, so these diagrams are also changing fast, and there are always new things are being added to them. But in general, most of the components that we see, they are always there, and it's always needed for any job interview you go at any stage of your career you are. And that's the end of my talk. Any questions you have? Oh, thank you. Please. Mike? This one? Sure.
Hi. So we all know that AI and artificial intelligence is ever-changing, as you said, and therefore I think it's okay to conclude that its meaning is ever-changing. As like an artificial intelligence expert and all of your years of expertise, what, in your own words, is your personal definition of artificial intelligence?
What is my definition of AI? I'm a fan of AI. So to me, AI is basically, from the name, artificial intelligence. The intelligence that we are designing as human. And I really like it that we have the power to design it ourselves, engineering it ourselves, because I don't think even 20, 30 years ago, it was like a dream for us, or if someone was telling us like, oh, there would be something like a ChatGPT, we were like, we were not believing them, or we were thinking it's like science fiction. So to me is the intelligence that me as a human, I'm able to create, and that's the fun part for me, and that's how I define it.
Thank you. I had a question about, so you've been in AI for at least a decade, right?
Yes.
I feel like we started seeing this big bubble around it starting about 4 years ago. What changed? What do you think happened? Why now?
To be honest, AI was there a long time ago. We were even using different names for that. But the advances of the AI that we see is not only like let's say, for example, data scientists, machine learning engineers became smarter in coming with them like more sophisticated model. It's the whole, technology from different, aspects. Like, for example, NVIDIA GPUs, if you know about them, they got much more advanced, or even the computers that we have, right? They were not this much fast. So even if we had this technology of GPUs maybe 20 years ago, we had LLMs then as well. And I think that's the whole thing. And another thing that we see previously, when I was doing my PhD, people who were in that field, they were too much updated about like AI. Some people didn't know about it, but now everybody knows. Our grandparents are even using, ChatGPT, right? And which makes their life much easier. And I think it's because of the social media as well. The reason that everybody's talking about it, we have access to social media easier. The grandparents that I'm talking about, I'm sure they have now Instagram, maybe TikTok, I don't know. So this knowledge sharing is much easier. And of course, there's so much advertisement about it as well.
Oh, thank you for your presentation. Just as someone trying to dip their toe into sort of AI, do you have any tips for a cost-effective way to do it? I guess I've come across subscription-based models with ChatGPT and all the developer tools out there that are publicly sort of available, and the courses as well. So do you have any tips of a cost-effective way without having 100 subscriptions?
Sorry, you want to start like your career, basically?
Yeah, and like some of the development tools, like you have to kind of pay a little bit to obviously use it, because obviously there is a cost involved with running the service. I was just wondering, as someone just sort of entering the market, like you said, trying to get the experience, are there, like, what would you prioritize?
Sure. There are so many free resources, especially. So I don't think it's necessary for us to go for the one which you have to pay for them, whether it's a course, whether it's a model you want to, for example, optimize. So there's so much things which is in the internet shared with us free. Open source, for example, models. If you are a developer, if you want to start going for courses, there are so many of these courses that even I talk about can be free. So what I'll do, I'll start with the free one, especially if you just want to test and see what's going on, and then later you can just learn more and see if this is something is really important for me. And I spend more time on getting the certificates. But courses are also very important, but some of them, regardless of the cost in the matter of money, I think the cost in the matter of time is also important. So make sure something you're taking is important for you. There are usually, especially on Coursera, there is like a preview. We can go and say whether this is something we are interested, this is something that I can spend time, 8 weeks and study on that, and then start committing to that. But you don't need necessarily to go for something that you have to pay. As I said, go to Kaggle. If you want to use, you don't have a perfect computer with the GPU, use Google Colab, for example. If you haven't heard about that, is like Google, there is a web application of that you can go and you can use powerful GPUs for free. There's so much things in the internet, just you have to search and you have to find them, and yeah, you're welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
So I want to ask, according to you, like, what are your views on the different LLM models on the market today? Like, we know, like, there's ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, all of these, and as technology evolves, there's constantly like new updates happening. So, what could be like your best one out there at the moment?
My best one, uh, for me, I really like Gemini models because, of course, because I can get access to them from being a GDE and play with them, and I really like it. But Claude is perfect. GPTs are amazing. There's so many other ones, so many open source one. Gemma models, for example, which are open source version of the Gemini for Google, they're great. But what I say, I always look at any technology, anything computer-related, hardware, software, technology, AI, like ICE. So I'll try to use as much as I need. And let's say if the problem I have, the data I have, I can solve it with a cheap, small model. Why not? Why should I go for expensive one? So, and as you said, they're always changing. There's something new is coming. But whether the new one or even like from the old ones, which one of them is suitable for my model? So usually they do some benchmarking and they talk about that these are tested or these are, for example, more trained on this specific type of data. And based on that, you can go ahead with something you can do. And what I'll do, I'll also try to get something that I can see if I can fine tune it for my own application. So there is it's very difficult to have a favorite one because, and we see from the information they themselves, they release, one of them is good for a specific task, another one comes for a specific task because they are trained on that specific task and data more. And what is your favorite one?
My favorite one, it has been like ChatGPT for a long time, but I've slowly tried others as well. But I feel like depending on the application, like their use kind of varies. So yeah, I would say that. So depending on the application.
Awesome.
What do you think about the negative effects of AI? Do you think one day it will take over the world?
I think this is like everybody, all of us, we have this fear that, because it's an unknown for us. And I see like the AI pioneers, like these big people in tech, they come and always say, this is an opportunity. You have to start learning it, so you have to think about it more seriously. And I totally agree with them. But does it mean we are not going to have the jobs that we have today? I'm not sure. We can see things are getting much easier. But does it mean there wouldn't be a new job in the future for us? This is something I think we have to wait and see. Whether there would be new demand for new kinds of jobs. Suddenly we can see something new suddenly comes up. That there would be demand in that and we have to learn about that or not. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe there would be at some point, there would be somehow some controls over AI because it's going so fast and the governance and regulations, it's not somehow speeding up. But at some point that I think we can come up with the better regulations and governance for that. That we see that one is also advancing, then maybe there would be it would slow down, or maybe they wouldn't let them jobs somehow vanish with AI. But I'll try to just not think about it at this stage because anything can happen, but hopefully in a good way. Yeah. Awesome.
I have spent a fair amount of time putting math problems into Gemini, and I have observed that it's not particularly accurate. And I've seen the same for other models as well. math seems to be a hard point, like the physical algebraic calculations. What else are these models not good at?
Maths, okay, I can talk about it. Depends. Some models are specifically trained and they're good on maths. But one thing that one of the favorite topics that last week I was also giving talk about it is about prompt engineering. Something is how we write the prompt is very important. And I always say, think about how we two humans communicate with each other. Let's say if I'll go to my doctor and I say, I have chest pain, how my doctor would, react. Compared to that, I say, I'm a heavy smoker and I have chest pain, right? They would think about, they would give more probability of some other diseases, or there might be prescribing a CT scan for me, easier than if they just think that I never smoke. So the same way that we can communicate with these models, the more information we provide for them, they can do better. And there are techniques that, for example, for complicated, maybe, I don't know what kind of math equation you use, but you can break it down into, smaller parts, and then it's easier for them to understand and solve the problem. The same way, I can ask you, so many different questions at once. There is, high probability that we as humans, we forget some of them, right? So for the models also, if we break it down, for example, chain of thoughts algorithms, if you heard about them, to break down your prompts into different parts, then it would help them. But try to see which ones are better, but they're getting much better and better. So, yeah, let's see. I don't think there is any more question, but if there is, feel free to, again, connect with me, please, on LinkedIn or anything else. I would love to be connected with you all and, hear what you're doing in AI. Thank you.
So that concludes our event this evening. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to both of our speakers. I think we all learned something today, and I hope we're all inspired to be inventors or developers. Just before you go, if any of you are interested in being more involved in events like this, please talk to myself or Delaney, and we're always looking for volunteers as well. It's a great way to meet people from all sorts of industries like this evening. Thank you for coming.